The irony of Keith Rowley, a man who made criminals out of lawmakers. Now quoting Bob Marley on justice, an editorial by Professor Wall Street. There is something deeply theatrical, some would say audacious, about former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley posting a Bob Marley quote on Facebook proclaiming that you will never find justice in a world where criminals make the law. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a cutlass. For 10 years, from 2015 to 2025, Dr. Rowley sat at the helm of the People's National Movement government, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago watched justice erode in real time. Now, from the comfort of retirement, he wants to quote the great prophet of Rastafari as if he weren't one of the very architects of the injustice he now decries. Let the record speak. Here are 10 reasons why Dr. Rowley's Facebook post, however unintentionally, is a perfect indictment of his own administration. 1. The Corruption Perception Index collapse. When the PNM took office in 2015, Trinidad and Tobago was already slipping on the Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index. But under Rowley's watch, the nation plummeted to its most shameful ranking. Academic research documented that Trinidad and Tobago scored a dismal 35 out of 100 on the CPI, placing it 101st among nations, the highest corruption ranking in the country's history, making it one of the most corrupt countries in the Caribbean at that time. This did not happen by accident. It happened because the people who made the laws were perceived by international observers, business leaders, and experts to be operating in the interest of the corrupt rather than the citizenry. 2. A downward corruption trend that never reversed. As early as 2019, UNC Deputy Political Leader David Lee noted that over the preceding 4 years under the PNM-led government, the country's corruption rankings had been going steadily downward. It is not improving, it is getting worse, he said, pointing out that the ease of doing business had slipped and that the opposition had been calling for procurement legislation to be enacted, calls that went ignored. The man who made the laws simply refused to make the laws that would have constrained corruption. 3. The blood-soaked legacy. 5,000 murders. Since 2015, when Rowley assumed office, over 5,000 persons were slaughtered in this country of 1.4 million people, giving Trinidad and Tobago the 6th highest murder rate in the world, higher per capita than New York City, with its 8 million residents. Where was the justice for those 5,000 families? Where were the laws that protected the innocent? The Marley quote rings especially hollow for the mothers, fathers, and children of those victims. 4. 124,062 crimes in 10 years. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar cited official figures showing that from 2015 to 2025, under former Prime Ministers Keith Rowley and Stuart Young, there were 124,062 crimes recorded, including 5,000 murders and nearly 9,000 rapes and sexual assaults. When criminals make the law cannot protect the people. Bob Marley understood this. The question is, did Keith Rowley? 5. Petrron and the $3 billion scandal. The Petrron gas-to-liquids project cost the country over $3 billion and then collapsed. The PNM subsequently sold the remnants of this billion-dollar national investment for pennies on the dollar to Nikon Energy Trinidad Limited, widely considered favored PNM investors. One of the very first acts of the Rowley-led administration in 2015 was the controversial decision to withdraw a $97 million lawsuit against the executive chairman responsible. That is not governance. That is protection of the connected class. the very definition of criminals making the law. 6. Broken promises and political deception. In 2015, the PNM promised citizens it would restore confidence, equity, and social justice, enhance and improve every area of national life, and deliver good, honest, equitable, and transparent government. Instead, what followed was described by critics as a political litany of mismanagement, corruption, incompetence, cronyism, and nepotism. Making a promise to a nation and then systematically doing the opposite is its own form of legislative crime against the people. 7. Reckless financial mismanagement and soaring cost of living. The PNM showed reckless financial mismanagement, wasting public funds while the cost of living soared. Basic necessities became luxuries for many citizens. Unemployment left thousands struggling to survive, and small businesses collapsed due to poor economic policies. Scandals surrounding missing funds, questionable government contracts, and financial irregularities in state enterprises went unanswered. Justice for the working poor was simply not on the agenda. 8. Procurement, corruption, and cronyism at the highest levels. From questionable procurement practices to widespread allegations of nepotism and cronyism, there was a growing national and international perception that corruption was rampant within the highest levels of the ROWLEY government, damaging not just the PNM's reputation, but undermining the very principles of transparency and accountability essential to a functioning democracy. When the gatekeepers of justice become the perpetrators of injustice, Bob Marley's words find their truest expression. 9. Austerity policies that fueled gang recruitment. When ROWLEY took over government, he announced austerity measures that eliminated social programs relied upon by those living in poverty. Experts note that this created fertile ground for gang recruitment as youth and families seeking safety and stability, where the state had failed to provide it, turned to gangs instead. Passing austerity laws that strip away social safety nets while protecting the wealthy elite is, by any moral measure, lawmakers criminalizing poverty. 10. A state of emergency at the end. Too little, too late. ROWLEY announced his resignation as Prime Minister before the end of his term, with his legacy inextricably tied to the country's murder rate. His government declared a state of emergency on December 30th, 2024, days before leaving office. A desperate last act after nearly a decade of failing to address the root causes of violent crime. A decade of making laws that failed the people, capped by a last-minute emergency declaration, is not governance. It is an admission of failure dressed up as action. In conclusion, the mirror doesn't lie, Dr. ROWLEY. Bob Marley spoke truth to power. He spoke for the dispossessed, the overlooked, the victims of systems built to protect the powerful. When Dr. Keith ROWLEY posed that quote, he is, whether he knows it or not, holding up a mirror to his own 10-year record. The people of Trinidad and Tobago did not find justice under his watch. The corruption ranking said so. The murder statistics said so. The empty state coffers said so. The grieving families said so. Justice, as Marley understood it, requires leaders who serve the people, not leaders who serve themselves, their financiers, and their political machinery. By that measure, Dr. ROWLEY's Facebook post is less a political commentary and more a confession. Professor Wall Street will continue to hold all leaders accountable at Cotaet, past, present, and future. The people of Trinidad and Tobago deserve nothing less.